Hey everyone, Kevin Campbell here. Today I'm going to do a quick demo of the Compendium Metric Hub, which is our answer to metric chaos at healthcare organizations. So let's dive right in. Now, from a cataloging perspective, there's really no difference between a metric and any other object we might want to track within Compendium. You can organize it however you want to. You can add unique attributes that only apply to that particular object type. For example, with a metric, we might have a metric status where you can track that the metric's in development versus in validation, or whether it's certified and ready for production. So all of that's pretty similar from a cataloging perspective. Where we go a step further with the Compendium Metric Hub is we store the actual SQL for that metric, the SQL code that generates the output for that metric. We store that in the catalog, and then we run that SQL against the data source, generate the metric output, and store that in the metric hub. So then you can pull that metric information from into whichever reports or dashboards you want to across your organization. And the benefit is that they all stay in sync because they're all pulling the metric outcome information from the metric hub. Let's jump into an example so I can hopefully try to make this make some sense. So we're going to add a new metadata object of type metric, and we're going to call it diabetes optimal care, which I've obviously done already. And this is optimal care for diabetes patients. Having a little trouble typing. And we'll add it to the metric hierarchy. And normally we would add, as much definitional information as we could. I'm just going to add a few things. We'll add some owners, inclusion, exclusion. So we'll say excludes anyone without a history of diabetes. The main thing I'm going to focus on is the SQL itself because that's what generates the metrics. So I'm going to jump over to my query tool and take it from there. So here's a query I've been working on. Let's say I'm a data analyst. I'm in charge of creating a metric for diabetes optimal care. I'm writing the SQL against the source system, and I'm writing that SQL in whatever way makes sense to me. So it doesn't have to be in any particular format at this point. But it's patients with a history of diabetes. I have a date parameter on there. I've got a few dimensions that I know I'm going to want to report on. So hospital, primary care provider. And then I'm in the numerator for this particular metric are patients who have a hemoglobin A1C under 7 and have had an office visit within the last 6 months. So that's what determines that you're in the numerator for this particular metric. Now from here, there's some formatting that has to be done. So once I've validated, I've tested this, I'm ready to commit it to the metric hub. There's a few things that I won't get into now about how you format that to fit into the standard output, but I'll show it to you quick. It's really just mapping the fields into their standard repository field names, and then it's pretty much ready to go. And you can test that and make sure that that runs as well. And this is essentially what it looks like, what those standard fields look like. So I'm going to take this query and I'm going to copy it back into Compendium. I'm going to copy that into the metric SQL field. Now one change I do need to make is I need to grab the object ID 2421 that's been created for this new object. And I need to add that here. And there's a couple other things I need to do. I need to set this to refresh now so the backend process knows that this particular metric is ready to run. I'm going to add a category so that it can be pulled into the dashboard. And then I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then one other thing I'm going to add for this particular metric is I'm going to add a goal. So goals can be added for any metric. You can have as many goals as you want. They can be goals, benchmarks, what have you. So we're gonna pick our metric, and we'll call this a corporate goal. And you can have effective dates so that you can have goals that are just effective for a particular year. Here I'm just going to put a number in for the goal amount and hit save on that. Now before I jump over to our example dashboard, one other thing I want to show you is manually entered metrics. So what I was just showing you now with the SQL, that would be an automated metric. We also have the ability to enter manually entered metrics. Now, obviously, you don't want to have a lot of those in your organization. Automation is our friend, but there are always some metrics that either aren't ready to be automated or will never be automated, perhaps, just because of the nature of that particular metric. So I'll show you an example. I'm going to click into one of our manually entered metrics. So employee engagement is a pretty good example. You generally can't get detailed level data from the vendor that's administering those employee engagement surveys because they don't want you to be able to find an individual employee's survey information. So we have an interface here so that these things can be entered, in this case at an aggregated level for that particular metric. So let's say I've got a new entry for Brookhaven Hospital, and I'm entering in ICU metric, and there's 70 out of 90 or 82 are engaged, and so that's the aggregated measure there. So we can go in and enter that particular information, and this we can also have goals associated with manually entered metrics, and these will show up on the dashboard as well, which I will show you next. This is our example dashboard. This happens to be in ClickView, but you can use any tool that you want to, Tableau, Power BI, Crystal Reports, or you can use multiple tools. That's really the beauty of the Metric Hub, is that you can have multiple different reporting tools and dashboarding tools hitting that Metric Hub, ensuring that whenever you see one of these metrics on a dashboard, that they're in sync. So that's really what's important. You'll see that we have our employee engagement metric on here already. That's one that's been existing, but our new one that we added is not on there yet, Diabetes Optimal Care. So I'm going to refresh this dashboard. I did run the metric refresh in the background so that was created at the Metric Hub level. And now you can see that metric has been added to our dashboard. So when you have metrics that come from different data sources and have different granularities and things like that, when you have them standardized in the Metric Hub, they can be displayed a lot more easily together in a tool like this. The other nice thing is that all the business logic for that metric is at the database level, and so your visualization tool can just focus on visualization logic. So we can add things like filters on particular types of metrics that leverage the metadata that we have. We can look at specific units, for example. The other thing that we can do, because the Metric Hub is integrated with the data catalog, is if we want to drill down on a particular metric and we want to go to the reference tab, if we've created a reference tab, we can see that same metadata here that exists within the data catalog. So we pulled in obviously the name, the definition, the owners that we selected. We get things like last refresh, date and time from when we refreshed that information. And we can even pull in the SQL if our users are savvy enough to look at that and potentially be able to copy it, throw it into their query tool, help with validation. That can really be helpful to the organization. So there you have it. Automated metrics, manually entered metrics, goals, definitions, ownership, all in the same place so that all your reports and dashboards stay in sync and all your metric definitions are transparent to the organization. That's the Compendium Metric Hub. Thanks for watching.